Welcome everybody to tonight's Aspiring Educator events on virtual call. NEA is your professional organization and union of support, and for your early career to retire. We are super proud to lead each and every one of you. Before we get started, we would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional tribal lands across our country. No matter where we are located, we honor Americans' first people and all elders, past, present, and emerging. Let us please take a moment. Thank you. So we are at our last event of the NEA Aspiring Educator Black Lives Matter Week of Action. If you all enjoyed this week of action, drop some emojis, clap your hands, something. Special shout out to our chairperson, Cameo. We love you. We support you. We are here for you. You did an amazing job in leading us in this work. So you all took action by learning about the NEA demands for Black lives and signed a pledge to continue in more work towards racial justice with us. So I am Derek Sanders Jr., a junior secondary English education major from Cincinnati, Ohio, currently attending the illustrious Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. In the Aspiring Educators program, I am honored to serve as the president of the local chapter of Tennessee State University in the state of Tennessee, the NEA Aspiring Educators Advisory Committee member, and the founder and chair of the Aspiring Educators of Color Caucus. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Every participant is automatically muted. If you want to share something, use the chat box. Please use the chat box to ask questions, discussion questions, or topics, and share resources and links that will be easily accessed for all of us. There will be time for Q&A at the end. If you want to submit a question for the Q&A portion, use the chat box. We are recording this call so that it can be shared to the NEA Facebook group for future viewings at NEA Aspiring Educators. Amanda?
All right, I'll take it from here. Hello, my name is Amanda Gaynor, and I am a senior majoring in elementary education at Old Dominion University in Virginia. In AE, I am my local chapter's president. I'm on the board of directors for the state of Virginia, and I serve as the secretary for the amazing Aspiring Educators of Color Caucus. Tonight, we are joined by Black leaders in NEA as we dive into discussions together on the systematic suppression of the Black voice and Black experience in America and in our educational system. And speaking with you tonight, these leaders will share how it is our collective responsibility to work to ensure that Black lives matter in our communities and in our schools. Derek?
Thank you so much for that, Amanda. So tonight we have a panel full of amazing people that I love to call my family, supporters, everything. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that we welcome you into this space and we thank you. We have Mr. Carvon, Miss Karen, Miss Turquoise, Miss Gina, Miss Price, Mr. Kumar, and Miss Tanya. So we're going to go ahead and get into the panel discussion. So our first question, please share with us of your work that you do in NEA and also when you had your first Black educator.
I'm happy to start. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Gina Harris. I am from the great state of Illinois, and I am a culture and climate coach in a middle school. What I do with NEA is I am an NEA director. I sit on the board for NEA as well as be the treasurer of the NEA Black Caucus. Love it, love it, love it. Our caucus is amazing. I also sit on the budget, strategic plan and budget committee for NEA, stuff at the state level too. But the most important thing I get to do is advocate for students. And so one of the things that I love about the work we do at NEA and the work that we do when we go out to DC is really have conversations with our legislators about students and what students need. And today, as a matter of fact, we just had an engagement with our Ethnic Minority Affairs Committee for the Budget Committee to talk about how can we ensure that we're using our funds to make sure that our students have what they need, that our Black students have what they need. So that's, and my first Black teacher was in the 3rd grade, Miss Papademus. I will remember her to this day. She had the best afro ever and my hair would not afro. And so, yes, Miss Papademus, just still love her to this day.
All right, my name's Kumar Rashad. So I'm a member of the NEA Black Caucus, but my work really rests with the as an ethnic minority director for the National Council of Urban Education Associations. Work that I do, I'm really passionate about representation, getting our faces into places and spaces and making sure that we have those opportunities. So most of my work is really getting that part. First Black educator for me actually was in, I don't know, does kindergarten count? I mean, yeah. I went to, at that point, I was in an all-Black Catholic school in Cleveland. And so, yeah, that was it. And her name was Miss White.
I'll go next. Happy Saturday night, everybody. I am Turquoise Lejeune Parker. I live in Durham, North Carolina. And as I said, y'all are all welcome to come visit whenever COVID is gone. I'm in my 10th year teaching, and my Durham Public Schools title is media coordinator. My self-given title is racial and social justice teacher, because that is the best way to describe the work that I do each day. And I'm also my local vice president, NEA director for North Carolina, and a bunch of other stuff. But my favorite thing is being able to work with so many wonderful racial and social justice humans, some of them being on this call, like Derek said, who I'm just really grateful to be able to call, not even my friends, but my family. And I'm really grateful for all of you on here. And my first Black teacher was my first year in college. I'm a graduate of the very prestigious, the greatest historically Black college and university in all of the land, the illustrious North Carolina Central University. And my freshman year was my very first year having a Black teacher. And I had all Black teachers in that first semester. And I was, as old folks say, grinning like a chesty cat. I was just blown away that there were Black teachers. I didn't know what to say. But my first Black teacher was in college, and I am really, really, really grateful to be a Black elementary educator, so that can, in working in this union, so that we can make that a different experience for a lot of our kids across the country.
All right, I'm gonna go next because I cannot let her represent her HBCU like that. When I have, I attend the best HBCU of them all. But my name is Carvon Page. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I represent Tennessee. I study, I'm getting a master's in public administration from the illustrious Tennessee State University, where we have, the aristocrat of bands, which was Obama's favorite band, the only band to play on the front lawn of the White House. But I am the board of directors for the Aspiring Ed program. This has been like a really great journey to, transition into this work and see what they do on the board of directors level. I've been a state president for Aspiring Ed. I've been on our board for Tennessee as well. So I worked in many different capacities. I started kind of the groundbreaking work for aspiring educators of color with the NBI 117. I put in at a representative assembly a few years ago. So like this is really embedded into, you know, my system. And I'm happy to be here because I am unapologetically Black. You know, everything Black is me. I'm going to definitely talk about HBCU if I get a chance to always, you know, got to put that in the room. So I'm just glad to share this space with all my family and friends, everyone that I, you know, consider to be very close to me. So this is beyond awesome today. And my first Black educator was in kindergarten. Her name was Miss Wyndham. She's actually one of the oldest teachers in Fort Wayne Community Schools in Indiana. So that's, you know, something to be proud of. So, thank y'all.
I'll happily go next. My name is Price Jimerson. I do not hail from an HBCU. I go to a PWI, unfortunately. That's because Washington has strict laws to becoming a teacher. I go to Eastern Washington University in Cheney, Washington, which is on the east side of the state. I am originally from Seattle, Washington, which is on the west side of the state. You can quote me on that in the newspaper. I am a member. I am my state's president for the Aspiring Educators. I am the student representative for the Black Caucus. And for my first teacher, funny enough, and it made Seattle Public School District mad, I attended the African American Academy for kindergarten through third grade. So my teachers were Black all the way probably until fourth grade when I had to switch schools because the school board got mad that we had an all Black school and shut us down. But that's who I am, and I'm happy to be here.
I'll go. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. I am just so excited to be here and see everybody's beautiful faces. I'm coming to you from San Jose, California, AKA the Yay area. California, the West Coast, the best coast, undisputed. But moving on. I'm a middle school ELA and social studies teacher. I am proud to be the secretary for the NEA Black Caucus, as well as an NEA board member and a member of our NEA's Ethnic Minority Affairs Committee. I have the privilege and honor of serving alongside of the one and only Miss Karen Moore, and then also Gina Harris, both of them distinguished women who I absolutely admire and respect. And love dearly, along with everybody that is here. My first Black teacher was actually my second grade teacher. Well, first it was my grandmother. My grandmother was my first Black teacher before I got in school. So we're gonna start there, and all the women at church. But my first Black teacher was Mrs. Johnson in second grade, who was the sweetest, and my favorite was Mrs. Bothwell, fifth grade teacher. She didn't play. She did not play no games. She was the first person to elevate me, I think, to see things in me, but also call me out. She was the first teacher to tell me I was bossy. In love. She said it. So I absolutely love her. So yes, it's an honor to be here with you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I have to speak after my sister. I'm Karen Moore. My role in NEA is two. I serve as the vice chair of the NEA Black Caucus, which I so proudly serve, and I love to do. And secondly, I'm a part of the Leaders of Color NEA cohort, and that is a program where I am a coach and a mentor to a early career teacher. So it's basically a mentoring program where it's all teachers of color, where we get to impart ourselves within each other and build those relationships and give each other tidbits and help you not only as an educator, but through the association. Because a lot of the stuff that we learn through the association is learned by trial of fire. And it's good to have someone to educate you through the different entities of the association. Like Kumar, all the way up until 8th grade, all I knew was Black teachers. My kindergarten teacher, Miss Howell, which I loved, but my 4th grade teacher, Miss Hambrick, is the reason why I became a teacher. Like you, Tanya, she saw something in me, and I was one of those pupils who, I was a teacher pleaser. Whatever Miss Hambrick wanted, I was doing it. And Miss Hambrick wore those polyester skirts with them stockings that swished and them thick sole shoes. And one day I loved school and I didn't want to go home and I was sick. And I went up to Miss Hambrick to let her know that I was sick. But by the time I got up there, I threw up all shoes. And Ms. Hambrick didn't blink an eye. She just gave me a hug and said, go to the bathroom, get it together, and we'll call somebody to pick you up. And that right there was like, wow, she could have just been really upset, but she saw past the act and saw the love for a sick child. So yes, ever since I was in 4th grade, I knew I wanted to become a teacher, and that I have done.
Wow, these are like, this is so amazing. I definitely can see that as a whole, it ranged across the board of when you guys experienced your first Black teacher, especially toward the elementary school range. That's where it seems to be. And I too, like, also had my first elementary school teacher was in pre-K actually, so I can relate. So with that being said, all of the factors that hinder the success of educators of color entering teacher preparation programs, what do you think is one of the most consequential in our incapability as a country of truly diversifying our workforce? Whoever will speak up first.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for me, I would say, because I'm going through it right now, Washington requires you to have the EdTPA. That is probably one of our biggest barriers. I know other states have, I think it's praxis that they have to do either additional or together, because, you know, states just want to rack up the money for Pearson. But for me, I think that's one of the biggest things, because currently I'm going through the process of registering and then starting the registration. You got to pay $300 automatically out of your own pocket, depending on where your school is. There's one school in my state I found out they pay for it. But I wasn't lucky enough to go to that school because they didn't have my major. But you have to pay for that, and depending on if you have the right software or not, you're out here spending even more money. I heard yesterday, because we were arguing with our state legislators about getting rid of it, someone had to pay a total of $600 because additionally to the $300 registration fee, she had to buy $300 worth of editing software to submit 2 20-minute videos that don't even showcase how good of an educator she will be to her students. That's just the number one, having to do that, as well as standardized tests that do not educate or eloquently show how you are as an educator. You can't see how I am with my kids in little snippets of 3 minutes that equal 20 minutes. You can't see that. You don't see the jovial and the happiness or the care. Like how Miss Karen said, where her teacher threw up on her, she didn't go crazy. You can't see that in the video. You only see what you want to see. And that's probably, for me, the biggest thing that's having the issue is these standardized tests paying out to people who do not care, who we know that as a union we don't care for because they have these issues.
Wow, that's so amazing right there, because I was getting ready to say the same thing. For the most part, that's what it's all about. It's about that representation. These tests are used in order to weed our people out. I mean, they have no purpose, like Price, you know, just stated. They really have no purpose. So in our states that you know, in my state, we started a minority teacher recruitment movement organization, in which that's what our job is to do, is to recruit, train, and mentor Black teachers primarily. And one main obstacle is passing the praxis, as she stated. I'm a math teacher by trade, so therefore I take on the responsibility of hosting free math classes for people trying to pass the math portion of the praxis. I have friends that want to do the English as well. We started doing that, and this is what we started doing that. It gained momentum. Honestly, it gained national momentum. So we were able to trying to reduplicate the same type of process, which was what my intention was when I put out that NBI 117. I can't remember which number it exactly was, which was which was a call for the NEA to have 10 states pilot a program to recruit 2 people per state in those 10 states to go around recruiting teachers of color and get some sort of a compensation out of that. But we want to expand it to be, you know, more nationwide, because it's important. We have to do those things. And on the state level, you got to look at places like was Iowa. Iowa just passed a law last summer in which not only do, you know, they had where they only they gave you an option that said it's not only, you know, first you just had to take the praxis, but now you can take the praxis, or you can be certified by an intern program from like your local universities. And that's where we got to start talking to our legislators and letting them see states that are doing those things and try to make change in our state. So I'm trying to make change in my state right now by trying to introduce that this year. So God willing, man, pray for us.
I would add, oh, go ahead, Turquoise, go ahead. I mean, there are all of the barriers, you know, that Price mentioned, and the legislative aspects and all of those things. But I think what's important to also talk about, and this goes for us who are in education right now, is the trauma that our that our students of color face, that once they graduate, why would they want to go back and work in that environment? You know, why would they want to go back and teach and work in a place where they were traumatized, where they didn't see themselves, and where they felt oppressed and they were pushed out and pushed into, you know, the pipeline and miscategorized and put into special ed classes unnecessarily, and, you know, suspended and received high discipline at school. I mean, we have to talk about that if we're talking about where are all the teachers of color, right? Because we hear that now. And then we also have to talk about how our teachers of color are leaving the profession at much higher rates than our white teachers because of the microaggressions that we face. So if I'm feeling like I can work in this space, I'm not going to encourage Black students and Black young people to come in to replace me. If anything, I'm going to tell them run the other way. So if we don't address the trauma, the institutionalized racism, the microaggressions, and how we are pushing out our Black students and therefore pushing out our Black teachers and other, then you can put any initiative in place that you want. You can do all the recruiting and retaining the efforts that you want. It's not going to make a difference. You're just going to burn through that many more teachers, Black teachers and teachers of color, that much faster.
Your point is making me think about, Tanya, one of the things that we, you know, as a NEA Black Caucus and as leaders in the organization, is our conversations are around how do we connect with members, Black members, so that they know that they have, that they're, you know, that they're not the only one, right? Because I went to one of my first events. My first teaching gig was in a district that I was the only Black person there in my building and in the district, mostly, one other person. And a small district, but still, the thing is, when we don't know that there's anybody else. So when I went to the first event, the first minority leadership training, and there were other Black people, I was like, wait, there's Black people in the union? I had no idea. And so also, especially on campuses, I think one of the things that's so powerful is Derek and Carvan and Camille and Amanda, the leaders that are here, that being on campuses in educator prep programs and them seeing that there are other Black people becoming teachers and that they're available to have, and that there's support available. Because without it, like Tanya said, that trauma is way too much, even in the university setting. And I teach as an adjunct faculty, and I very gratefully, I just taught a class that actually was predominantly Latino and Black, and talk about exciting to have a class that was predominantly people of color. I was beside myself. But it's, if you're in the university setting, you don't see each other, it's a challenge. So we have to make sure that we know how to get people connected to each other. We're here, but some spaces we're a little more spread apart.
I wanted to talk about like what's happening at Tennessee State. So we're a public education union. The private schools are getting our Black teachers, especially from HBCUs, because I'll take my school, for instance, like they're coming to our school, they're telling, hey, if you come work for us for 2 years, yep, the charters as well. If you come work for us for 2 years, we'll pay for you to get your master's degree. As a person that's, you know, from a single parent household, I struggle to pay for college. That sounds good to me. So, you know what, I'm gonna go over here with the private folks that's gonna pay for me, you know, to continue my education. There's not a lot of districts that are helping people continue their education. It seems like they want us to be the 1 degree teacher where they don't have to pay us for the next levels that we would go up, which is sad. But if we offered more incentives for being teachers within the public education sector, that would pull a lot of students our way. They are sucking us up out of our schools for public and charter schools because, you know, they have what they're attracting us. Like, I've been at a college fair for teachers, and the public schools and the charter schools, you know, I'm NEA down, so I'm gonna rock my pen, my lapel pin, wherever I go, you know, and I pull up to these tables just to conversate with them, and they're like, oh, you're an NEA? I'm like, oh yeah. Well, I don't think that this is for you, you know. So we got to try to, you know, work on our districts. We need to, you know, get in there and get in our superintendents and other people's mind to let them know, like, you want to keep teachers of color, this is how you do it.
The other thing that really bothers me about that is because I love history, the very foundation of public schools and why public schools started, and the reason why we can't right now be able to offer more incentives to educators, period, cross race, is because of the continued attacks and defunding of our public schools, which is, again, as I said, rooted and marinated in and funded by white supremacy so that they can control and divest and all that stuff, which leads to one of my answers to this question is, one, the pay for teachers. That's one reason why we cannot racially diversify, because I think we have to be really specific when we say diversify, because white supremacy has really tried to take that word diversify or diversity and make it into this really pumpkin spice thing that bothers me. And when we say, like, talk about why we can't racially make this profession more Black and brown, hey, I'm gonna use myself and my husband as an example. We're both in year 10 of teaching in the state of North Carolina, and neither one of us has our master's yet. And we both do not and have never seen $33,000. Everybody feel that real quick. 33,000, and we're at year 10 with no master's degrees. Also in the state of North Carolina, because of white supremacy, if your job does not require a master's, you don't, and you got your master's after 2013, you do not get master's pay. The only way that you get any pay, additional pay, is if you are a National Board Certified teacher, or if your job requires a master's, like a social worker, counselor, administrator, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of that happens because, let me actually, before I say that, the next part is what Price kicked us off with, testing. I hate tests, period. I hate tests, I hate grades. I think they're all rooted, I know they're all rooted in white supremacy. And we have to all continue to push back on that, period, because there is no reason. Everything Price said, I failed the praxis one, the one that you need to get into the teacher ed program, 5 times. And that's 5 expensive failed times, you know, but first time by 5 points, the second time by 3, 4, 2, and 1. My mama is a single mom, and I'm asking her over and over to take this test. Eventually, I had to change my major and figure out how to graduate and then figure out how to move through. But thankfully, I have an incredibly strong mother who kept pushing me to figure out how to get into the profession, even though the Eurocentric structure I wasn't pushing through that Eurocentric structure, which leads me to the other part. which is what kind of connected to what Dr. Jacob said. You cannot want me to come back into this profession after it ruined me. I had my counselor in high school told me, at the time in North Carolina, there was a 4-track system for high school students. There was workforce development, college, there was workforce development, community college, college tech prep, and college and university. I knew since I was 5 years, 4, 3, 2 years that I was going to college, and not just college. I was going to historically Black college university, because I was raised on one. My sister, my mom, everybody. I lived at Barbara Scotia College, at Voorhees, South Carolina State. So I knew I was going to college. But my high school counselor told me that I should really consider taking the workforce development track and just finding a job, because I was definitely not college material. Mind you, my mama was the whole PTA president. I watched my mama and went to class with her to get her doctorate degree. And I went with her to get her 3rd master's and 2nd master's. So I don't but that's one reason, is there are educators, there are humans that are telling our kids that they can't do this. And that's a huge, huge, huge issue. But like Brother Kumar said, we have to organize. And that's all of those things, pay really racist teachers, really racist educators, Eurocentric structures and curriculum, all of that. We have to organize. We can smash all of this, and we can get people into this, get Black and brown folks into this, if we organize. And organize not as an individual, but in a collective, because there is power in us as people.
Yes, and I could not agree with you all more, because if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything, which leads us into our next question. So the National Center for Education Statistics has projected that between the fall of 2017 and fall of 2029, the percentage of public elementary and secondary students who were white is projected to continue to decrease, while students of color and all racial groups increase. Our question is, how can aspiring educators organize around the importance of embedding the Black experience and voice in America in our schools for a more equitable representation for all students?
I want to go. For me, I'll be short too. For me, my way out was through the band. I was in when Drumline came out. So for me, it's representation, like showing them. It's a young lady I follow on Instagram, can't remember her name right now, but she teaches elementary here in Atlanta, and every week she talks about a different HBCU. She buys a shirt. She represents that HBCU in the classroom, and she teaches the kids about them. She, educates them on how they were founded. All these different things. She shows them different videos of like their marching bands. Like, I'm connecting that. That's what worked for me. Like, I never knew, like, wow. Once I seen Drumline the movie, I'm like, I could be in that. Like, I could do that, and that's what pushed me to, it's like, okay, this is my way out. Like, I can make it. I found out, you can get a scholarship to go to college at a Black school too. Okay, so I was like, all right, so I got to apply myself to learn this instrument and do good with my grades so I can get up out of here. I can make a way for myself. So representation is everything. So you got to start showing them, embedding different things in your classroom. Black Lives Matter, like embed that into your classroom as well. And show them great representation of themselves. Let them know who different pioneers of Black history are. It's a lot of people that we don't know about because they tell us about Martin Luther King and a few other folks, but it's people that that will spark something in our children that be like, you know what, I like that, I want to learn more about that, and it'll help.
I definitely agree and piggyback off that. And for me, I guess because I am in a more Caucasian dominated state, call them out. That's for one. luckily enough for me, like as I previously mentioned, from kindergarten through, I'll say half of, no, I'll say first, second grade, because my second grade teacher was my aunt, funny enough. Third grade, I had a white teacher. But halfway through that year, she was not uplifting the Black students at a Black school. My mom snatched me out and put me with at another school where it was a Black teacher who was uplifting and creating her students to be who they need to be. It really is about also teaching them other things. I don't know why there's so much stigma around I say this because J15 just happened and my mother is one, but there's so much stigma from others around our Divine Nine. But if you look at the ones, for me in Seattle, the people that I know, oh, Miss Jaco, the Alpha Kappa Alphas in my city, executives at Microsoft, executives at Amazon, executives for the city of Seattle, the state of Washington. These are people who are Black lettered Greek organizations who also went out there and did the dang thing. Just had a cousin who got uplifted in her promotion for a job. And what did she do? She pulled her next person up to her next position. She's now their boss because her position was vacant. So she pulled them up. We have to do that. Our teachers, and it can be a burden. I'll admit that, because you feel like, why does it always have to be me? Why don't others help? You gotta have, it's past time to be an ally. It's time to be an accomplice or get out of my way. Because if you're not here to ride with me, you better get out of my car. I'll leave you on the side of I-90 going east, and I'll leave you on the side of I-5 going south. You ain't gonna make it to Cali. You ain't gonna make it in New York dealing with me. Because our kids need to see truth. They need to see people who look like them. And I will forever be grateful to my mother and to those who worked at the African American Academy, because they helped build me. They built friendships, they built relationships. To this day, we dropped the album. That's how dope we were as a school. We dropped the album, and I still know them songs by heart. Stuff like that. I'm 22. I can remember when I was 5. Now, other stuff, don't ask me because I'm really not going to remember. But something like that will uplift that experience, because we randomly on Facebook all the time, those of us who are at AAA, we will randomly, somebody will post something, and then everybody will go, oh man, that brought back a memory. How is so-and-so doing? Have you guys heard from such and such? And then that builds it. Those teachers we had, bam, we have to be that change and encouraging our other people to be that change.
I was going to say the aspiring educator piece. Sorry, Ms. Jaco. You want to go? I was just going to say, as aspiring educators, when you're in your pre-service time and you're in classrooms and you see teachers doing things and you see things happening in schools, be the upstart. Say something. Be the person that's like, whoa, excuse me. That what you just said to that student, you don't have to call people out in front of everyone. You don't have to do it right in front of the classroom, but you have to, like, the thing about it is, no matter where we are, we're educators. And because you all are aspiring educators does not mean that you have not already said yes to being an educator. You are educators, and we educate everybody the moment we see them doing something that is out of line, specifically mistreating our Black kids. And it is so easy to catch. A show of hands, how many aspiring educators have been in a classroom already where you saw something that you were like, that's a little, right. So every time, we have to say something every time. And that is not always easy to do when you're the student
was a kids group in there. So part of the restorative justice, he had to spend 10 weeks definitely going week to week to church and participating in the mentoring program where it was him mentoring somebody else. The third part of the program was he had to take 4 do-it-yourself classes from Home Depot or Lowe's so that he could gain a skill that would build up self-efficacy. So first, he's restoring justice to me by apologizing to me. Second, he's restoring justice to community because he's mentoring other people. And third, he's restoring justice to himself because he's building himself into a better person. And we've got to push policies and higher thinking, man, like that.
I get to speak, but I was just going to go right along with what Brother Rashad said, and the restorative practices that we as educators, we have to push back on some of these policies that these school districts put and employ upon our students. I agree with what you said. And the biggest thing that stood out to me when you spoke is that restorative justice was for that student. It's not going to be the same for every student, but we have to educate ourselves on the process of how to restore one another. And even with restorative practices, we as educators need to be restored. Stop holding us accountable for one little incident that you may have deemed inappropriate, but when we have those relationships with those students, we know. But administrators don't want to know what we know, but they don't want to tell us what they know. But restoring our students the moment something happens, not running for a piece of paper saying, let me write you up. No. But how do we restore those students? The biggest thing that I always, and I'm a component of, is creating relationships with students. Once you have a relationship with a student, I can get a student to jump through a fiery hoop. I wouldn't ask them to do that, but because we have those type of relationships, they will do that. I have relationships with students. I've been to weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, you name it. I'm a part of the family because I took the time to create relationships with those students. So that's one of the things that is very important when we have to push back on some of these policies. And also, I wish we could just dismantle, because I heard the school to prison pipeline mentioned. The only way for me that we can escape the school to prison pipeline is we have to rip out the entire public school system and start anew. And we know that's going to take years and years to rebuild. I've heard several people say that we need a Black education system, and I want to get on another horse, but sometimes if you do the research, we have to look back at the court case that caused schools to integrate. Was it a good thing or a bad thing for Blacks?
So I'll add on to all, amen, yes, and yes to all of that, to both of them. You know, I would also add on, you know, advocating and pushing for ethnic studies. I'm not going to leave the space without bringing it up, because ethnic studies is not just a content area. First of all, let's be clear, it's over a 50-year-old discipline. Okay, so it's not new, especially for those who are trying to come around and that it's like a new trend, right, based on the events that are taking place. It is not. You can even say it's over 500 our history and revolts and rebellions and movements and acts of resistance. But ethnic studies is a pedagogical approach to teaching. And when you look at the principles and core values, they are rooted in things like love and community and solidarity, right? And it is taking a critical lens at what it is that you are learning. And so that forces you to also have to deal with yourself, to know yourself, right? To be aware of your own biases, to critique and constructively and critically look at your own biases as well as the world around you, and move you to a place of activism and civic. And so, and you can't do that without having some awareness of self, self-love, and love for other people. And so I think that having those kind of conversations across the board, wherever you might be, whether you know you're still in your program or you're a 20-year veteran teacher, advocating and pushing for ethnic studies in K through 12, not just an elective in high school. It shouldn't be that the first time anybody took an ethnic studies course was because they had to fulfill their humanities requirement in undergrad. That should not be the first time that somebody has an opportunity to learn about themselves or another culture, right? This starts in pre-K. And having these critical conversations about race. And again, when you're looking at a logical approach, that also brings in, do we need grades? Should we be testing? What do discipline practices look like, right? Because if we're a community, right, we're a family, I can't send, if you have a child at home, you're not going to send on the weekend, like right now, let's say somebody has a child acting up, you have no principal to send your child to. Your child is your responsibility. And when we see each other in that way, we're not sending kids to the principal's office because that's my child, right? Like, I need to love them. They need some correction and they need some discipline. We got to come up with the structures that Kumar, some of the things that Kumar mentioned and mentioned. So I think advocating and pushing for ethnic studies, not just as a class, but as a pedagogical approach to teaching.
Wow.
Can I add one more thing, please? Thank you. Y'all hit it all, right? You know how I feel about restorative justice and ethnic studies, so I'm with you. The piece that you all made me think about is because what we're starting to see in the system of education is people are saying, we did restorative justice, we did trauma training, so we've addressed all the issues for the Black students now, right? Like, this is what we're starting to see in education, and now this is not what, we're not saying, you can tokenize these activities and then you have done it. Like, you have to really listen to what Mr. Rashad and what Dr. Jaco said there, right? You have to embed, change culture, shift cultures in schools, shift that we're doing things, because otherwise what you're saying is, oh, well, we're just going to apply these things. I'm just going to create a program. It's going to be a program for the Black kids. And then when we do that program for the Black kids, then we've solved the issues of that. No, like, you have to shift the culture. You have to shift the culture of your space, your building, and your school. And as aspiring educators, you are in the process of shifting culture right where you are. So let us keep, like, we're all responsible for that, but it's holding people accountable to that too in the places that they're in.
Yes, and that right there is the key in my answer. And I'm just going to say 4 things before we hop into this. The first one is say their names. The second one is Black Lives Matter. Third one is racial justice is education justice. And the last one is our revelation continues. Period. So, with that being said, during today's action for our Aspire Educators Week of Action for Black Lives, we explored NEA's demand for justice for Black lives and signed a pledge join in on the work, if not already started. NEA demands that we transform policies. And these demands, NEA calls for the re-examination of the role of law enforcement in our communities and the schools. So with that being said, here's a 2-part question that everybody, I want you all to just let loose and go ahead and answer. The first part is, with this and the blatant murders of Black Americans in our country at the hands of law enforcement, what is your take on policies in schools? And also, how do we mobilize to continue to push for safer communities and schools while giving our youth the tools they need to continue the work even further?
That's a big quest right there. Big task there. Well, I'm gonna try to answer as quick as I can and as thorough in that quickness. First, Black law enforcement in the school does not belong most of the time, and in most experiences. I'm in a situation where my school is, most of my kids in my school are awarded through the state because they are already involved in the justice system. So our school does have police officers, but I will say that our police officers sit at the front door and watch the front door and never walk the hallways. I don't agree with them interacting with the students But in any traditional school, no, we don't need them in there. Mobilizing and pushing for safe communities. I work with guys. It's all to do with mentoring. You know, young teachers, aspiring teachers. You get into that program, you get to start teaching. You know, don't let them push everything on you. You got to start mentoring maybe one student at a time, two students at a time. Then you got to gain your capacity. So it all comes down to mentoring, because the students I mentor right now, even after school, I'm still guiding them to get to college. I'm sitting down with them, filling out them applications, because if I give them a web link, it's not going to get done. You understand? So you got to march with them the entire way, and find opportunities with them to gain some internships, so they can gain some skills, or find some community that's willing to give. You know, that's you know, our city right now is doing a big push to give students like that in my school situation, who are involved with the criminal system, job skills and vocational skills, to try to push them further. So you got to look for those opportunities for your students.
I just want to say one thing for self-correction, people. The word is policing in our schools, okay? I just had to, just go back. It's been a long week for what is your take in policing in schools, okay? So if anybody heard policy, just throw it out the window. We'll get there another day. But policing in schools.
I agree with what Rashad said. Police do not belong in our schools. It's to the point where everybody was at home and saw George Floyd murdered because of the pandemic. We all saw that. And so from George Floyd to Breonna Taylor to Freddie Gray, these deaths are being seen by our children. We have children that are afraid of the police, and they should not be. Me as a wife, I shouldn't have to worry about when my husband goes out, is he stopped by the police. I shouldn't have to worry about if my father is stopped by the police. I shouldn't have to worry about if my brother is stopped by the police. Because many a times we've led to feel that it's open season on Black people. And so police don't belong in our schools. Period. They don't belong there. What does belong there, like Tanya said, the ethnic studies, teach our children that there is more to history than that's in that crappy social studies book that they put together, because that's what they want us to teach. Cultures across the world are so just robust of things that children don't learn at school. Also, not only teaching ethnic studies, but how to teach them how to be a human being. What happened to teaching children how to save money? What happened to teaching children how to build their own businesses? Things like that, of that nature. So with the policing in schools, like I said, no, they don't belong there, but there are other things that we should be doing as far as educators to educate our children. And not only to the aspect of fearing police, but teaching and educating children that they are here to protect and teach them that there is their job. Fortunately, I still have little ones that say that they want to grow up and be a police officer. And I don't deter them from that, because I said that's a good thing. A police officer is to protect and serve. That's what firefighters do. Teachers, we protect and serve. I know I do. So no, police don't belong in our building. We need other ways to protect our children. I worked at a middle school once, and there was metal detectors, and they have been removed. But what sense did that, when you walk into a school and see a metal detector, that's already being put into the mind of, you're expecting me to have something, or you're expecting something to go wrong. So no, police don't belong in our schools.
I'll go next. I don't think they need to be there, but I do have a different mindset on it, because I grew up when I was at moved schools through that whole situation from third grade. We had an officer in our school. Background: I have family members. I've grown up with the knowing Seattle Police Department. My mom worked there, so it's something that I know. I've never really been afraid of police, because I know that there are some that I know. the officer was there, and for Seattle, it's been a trend. All the officers that they had in schools were of color, mostly Black men, which was a difference maker, I think, from other places where they'll put a white officer in a predominantly Black school, which creates tension. There was one middle school, which was probably the hub for our Black students. Their Black officer was their guru. That was their gangster. That's how they described him. That was their man. And when he promoted and moved from the school sector, them kids was pissed. And to say that to other places, to different people, they go, really? Because it's not seen everywhere. I've noticed that. It's not something that's normal. So for me and my Seattle-ness, that was normal to see to go in and see my Black man officer there who talked to me about policing, who talked to me about safety of things. He was there. He did that. But recognizing that Seattle may be the anomaly. So though we are great in how we did it, other places is not great. So the sacrifice that need to be done, okay, we can sacrifice us. We will sacrifice the goodness that was so that the greater good does not have to continue to have the issues that we keep having. Because the videos where I see a young girl get slammed on the pavement by an officer for misbehaving, even when her white principal is saying, yo, man, chill out. Where we have security guards who think, oh, even though that's their job is to do the discipline, let's immediately call the police or go call the police officers in the building. That don't sit right with me. So even though for my aspect, it was never a bad thing, get rid of them. It's not needed, because at the end of the day, it's about the collective, all of our babies, all of our kids, because we may have one kid who grew up in Seattle, but the next thing that they go grow up and have children and go down to Jersey or somewhere. And it becomes a whole different aspect. We can't just expect that we know the country. It's divided as can be. Last Wednesday proved that. We know that we are not, we're not where we need to be. And I think with that mobilization also is making sure that even though they're not in the schools, encourage, if you know officers who are above standard or at standard where they need to be, encourage them to have community and policing situations. Get out there so the kids know your face. So they know that the white officers that they see on TV are not all, it's not just them. We do have officers of color. Because I think that, or Miss Karen says that her kids, they haven't given up that the idea of maybe wanting to be one. Because we never know. Her student may grow up to be the next chief, and that's what we need. We can't get rid of ourselves in that situation just because there's the apples that are terrible, because we still have to be there to protect us. And that's, for me, that's where it is I know that there are Seattle who definitely were on the list of people who were at the Capitol on Wednesday. They've been put on administrative leave. But I know that those that were still here and doing their property and their proper protocols, they got my back because I know who they are. And hopefully, they can instill in their other officers to keep being above standard and being good. That's what we have to change. It's the same situation when you look at teachers who are unfortunately racist and work in an all-Black school. It happens way too often. We have to be the change, work on them. You don't want to, but you don't want to see your children suffer. If they come to your class every day and say, man, Miss Parker, such and such has been on me. So you're going to get on them too. It's time to change it. That's for me. We do get rid of them, but we also need to make sure our kids are not scared of them, because when something happens where they need them, we need them to not be afraid to call them. We have too many situations in schools where unfortunately we need officers to come in and take over.
Can I add a comment here? Thank you, Price, for your perspective. In my school district that I sit on the school board for, we remove the police from the school. And in the school district that I teach in, we remove the police from the school. We did this for a specific reason. And that reason was because the students told us that they did not feel safe, that they felt traumatized, and that they felt attacked and policed, that they actually felt policed. And for me, the overwhelming conversation is really about students, 12-year-olds do not need to feel policed. When somebody doesn't know how to do math problems, we teach them. People don't know how to tie their shoes, we teach them. If people have a behavior issue in classroom, we call the police. Wait a minute, that's not what we do, we're teachers, right? So there's not a need, and here's the problem with having them in the building at all. Them will never change as long as they are in the building, right? Because then everyone in the building is going to rely on, oh, there's an officer, something happened, get the officer in here, instead of, hey, what kind of relationships do we have with the students so we can make sure that they know that they're respected, appreciated, loved, cherished for who they are, so that they don't have those instances coming up. We're focusing on the wrong thing by keeping them in the building. And I get a little vehement because I just have had enough conversations with students. And when the student tells you that this is what it feels like, then I can't have that continue to be the practice.
Yeah, I think we also have to consider the history of it, right? We're not saying that we don't want children to grow up and be police, or that we don't want police per se. We're talking about specifically policing in schools, which doesn't happen in affluent white areas, okay? So why is it that Black and brown folks need police on campuses, but white folks do not? And that is evident in how the Capitol Police and FBI and them prepared for BLM over the summer, and how they prepared for these white nationalists that told them exactly what they were getting ready to do. So if we look at, and I put a link in the chat, is the history, the first police officers were slave patrols. That was their job, to go get the runaway slaves, keep them in check, bring them back, keep them enslaved, make sure that they are where they're supposed to be at all times. That is rooted in that institution. We cannot ignore that. I'm not saying that we can't heal and grow and, it can't move on from that, but we have to start there and acknowledge that and recognize how that has been perpetuated in our communities and in our schools, and that we as Black people have generational trauma from law enforcement. We cannot ignore that either. We have to talk about that. And that cannot be ignored. So all of those feelings, we've all had the conversation. We don't need to break it down. This is how you stay alive, right? Not like this is how you show respect to law enforcement, but this is how you stay alive. And if we're not having those kind of hard conversations, missing it, right? Because we get into this debate about should we have SROs or should we not? The reality is, why, as Gina pointed out, why do we need police in our schools as educators? We're here to train and coach and teach and prepare, right? Which means that we have to have like practices that allow for error and mistakes and folks to do things wrong and ways to correct the behavior. We know how to do this. We also have to acknowledge that law enforcement is not trained in restorative practices. They are not trained in mental health. They do not know how to respond to our students who are autistic or have any type of special needs. They're not prepared for that. They're trained for combat, in short, if we want to get down to it. And that's the length of their training. So we're asking them to go above and beyond what they've been trained and prepared to do. The last thing I'm gonna say is we also need to look at, even if you're bringing SROs on campus and they're friendly and we love them, right? And other people feel safe. The reality is, are districts really checking the background? Do you know the history of that law enforcement officer? Do you know if has complaints for being racist? Do they look into that? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, my school district does not. They have the contract, they have the MOU. We don't know who's coming, if they're racist or if they are not racist. If they even like kids, we don't know. We just assume because they wear the badge. So, our advocacy needs to go on just that, but understanding the historical context of it, the generational trauma that is in play, the culture of law enforcement today, and also as educators taking back our profession and our communities and being leaders and providing not only the teachers, but the counselors, the wraparound services, the mental health services, the social safety net services that are needed for our students and their families, because that's how we build up our communities, not policing them and not, again, reprimanding them for being human.
And not, and to add on to Dr. Jacob, you can't even stop at just first of all, no, the answer is no, police do not belong in our schools, period, whole stop right there. Also, let's be real about the adults in the building who think they are police as well, and provide some strong policing efforts to where we don't even actually need, we can say we don't need law enforcement like the Durham Police Department in our building. Yet we don't need them, but we also don't need these teachers coming in here posing as police. That's not it. Our education support professionals are not police. Our bus drivers are not police. Our maintenance staff are not police. Our custodial staff are not police. Our cafeteria staff are not police. And that's where we are. And to then tap on something that Sister Karen talked about was we need to tear this system down and build back up. We need to tear this racist system down and build an anti-racist system again. Like, not again, but well, I will say again, because we want to make sure we don't smash on the Black educators who really did have some strong anti-racist schools. Because if you talk to some of the families, for example, in Little Rock, how some of the families who integrated Little Rock Central High School had siblings that chose not to integrate that school who were in high school as well, because they felt like they had incredible teachers at their all-Black school and they didn't need to go there. So they chose to stay because their school was already dope. They didn't need to go to the white school. So we have to rebuild the anti-racist schools that we had, but we can't do that from this lens of just because you're Black, you are already anti-racist. We are all in this system of white supremacy, whether we know it or not. And decolonizing is a process, not a journey, because sometimes we don't even realize how rooted in white supremacy some of our thoughts are. When we make kids, when we tell, this makes my skin crawl, kids tell our babies that they have to learn how to code switch. That is the dumbest. Be yourself, honor their culture. Another thing that leans on what Sister Moore said was about tearing down the system. Our kids should not get to high school, graduate from high school, and not know what they want to do or have an idea of it, because we put them in the system. No disrespect to all of the disciplines that we have to focus on, math, social studies, reading, no disrespect to the discipline, but if at 5 years old, I can see this fire in this kid's eye every time we talk about racial and social justice, then let's put that baby in a track that helps them understand. Or if at 10 years old in 5th grade, I see like, you know what, Derek is really good with his hands. Let's put him in a track and really focus. One of my kids, when I was teaching in a very affluent district, she is like the next Gabby Douglas, like no shade, like no jokes. That's my girl. I go to all her gymnastics meets, state and nationally, because she is going to get there. Her parents took her out of the public school system and put her in a gymnastics school. So in the morning from like 8 until 11, they do academics. And then the rest of the day is gymnastics. She's honing her craft. And I think that's the thing that we have to try to build so that our kids can get to high school and realize like, I'm really good at a lot of different things. And that's one of the ways, to that second part of the question, that we push for safer school communities and schools is our kids feeling like school is a place where I see myself and I see options, but school is a place that is full of trauma and is full of hurt, and I just can't stand that place. And a lot of kids, truth be told, were really grateful when this pandemic hit, so they have to be at school under all this. And then some teachers are wondering why this kid won't come. I option to see your face and sit under your trauma. Sis, I'm choosing to not come, period. Let's be real. So I think we have, and all of that, again, as I said earlier, takes organizing in an anti-racist collective. Nobody can lift this thing. This is a heavy lift. Can't nobody do that by yourself. So partnering with people is going to be really important, so we can bring the gifts out of our kids. They're so brilliant, and we can show them so many different ways, and taking them on trips and giving them experiences beyond the four walls of that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys hit on a lot of great points. Oh my goodness, if we had all day, I know you guys will have so much to say, and we really do appreciate you guys for being here on this panel today. So to close this out, I want to hear from each and every one of you, like one final sentence, one final thought to wrap everything up on this question. What is one thing you would tell aspiring educator activists who are tackling topics like the treatment of Black lives throughout history, racism, and America's current racial reckoning with their students/kids?
I'll go. I would say be honest, be unapologetically Black and honest. They're going to respect that in the long run, that you are honest with them about everything that they want to know and everything that they ask. I respected my teachers more because what I wanted to dive into, they helped me dive into that. They showed me that there was more outside of them. This is just 4 years, you know. School is just 4 years, you know. Middle school is just 4 or 5 years, you know. There's way more past this, and we have to let them know that, you know, your future is bright. So, you know, especially what Turquoise was saying, you know, get, you know, being passionate about something and just tapping into these children. One reason why I'm here is because of a black teacher that spoke into my life and would not never let me give up. That was another thing, like never give up. A lot of people told me when I joined the union that I can't always push the HBCU issue. You know, you want to be invited to the table for other things. That's me. That's me. That's what I push, you know. And I was very sad that people would tell me that, but I'm never gonna let up off their neck. I'm gonna continue to push that until the day they put me in the ground. So just continue to do you. Be honest with our kids, and don't never give up. Never give up.
I would say know your why, right? And this is a marathon, not a sprint. We are ancestors with dreams. It has taken centuries for us to get to this place. And, you know, remember that the change that you are seeking to achieve, you might not see it, but we're here because someone else continued to push on, right? And so you have to think generationally, right? Not, are we coming with a lot of passion and drive and we want this right now? And, you know, and I get it, we all want it right now, right? But just remember, know your why. Remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint. You are your ancestors' wildest dreams, and you are paving the way for the next generation. So get your circle, get your team, your circle of support, folks that are older than you with some wisdom, that know the game and can help you to navigate, and take it one day at a time.
Yeah, I'm going to be short. Mine was get your tribe, have your people, and have them surround you. because you need support for the long journey. And it's hard, and it's going to continue to be hard. So get your people around you, make sure you have your support, but don't stop, no matter what.
Okay, so I'm gonna round it off for the Black Caucus real quick. Well, Price is a Black Caucus AE, but I just want to jump in here real quick. Carvon, when you spoke about people coming to you about always having something to say about the HBCU, when you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind was the ATA merger. We're here because of the ATA merger with NEA. So you keep pushing for what you believe in, brother. And what I would share with the educators, aspiring educators, is the way that the Black Caucus ends our meetings. Even though we say it, but it's so embedded and it's so powerful, just to let you know that not saying that is one thing, but believing it and hearing it over and over and over and over and over and letting it instill within you is something that I would just like to leave. And I'll just say it really quick. I'm not going to ask for the, the call and response, but to the AEs, it is your duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and respect one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
For me, I would just say to also never forget yourself. I think I've noticed personally with some people, they dig so deep in that they forget to care for themselves. We need you around to keep doing the work. So make sure that while you are doing this work and you are feeding into those who are doing the work, care for yourself. Because above all, if you're not here, we can't get your perspective, we can't get your love, we can't get your mind. If you have to take care of yourself. And I'm gonna throw it out there, go to the doctor. Simply. That's in it. Just go take care of yourself.
Just real quick, I really want to say that make sure you have that initiative and advocacy, as I was saying in the little chats, mindset, replace those words with, we need this we're getting ready to take this. My grandfather told me, he said, either, you take it easy or you just take it. So let that sink in.
And I'll say, build relationships. Build genuine, authentic relationships with your children, because you cannot tackle any of the topics like the treatment of Black lives throughout history, racism, none of that, unless you have genuine, unassuming, authentic relationships with your children. As Sister Moore said earlier, if I asked these kids to run through a fire for me, they would. And like you said, I wouldn't ask them that. But building relationships that transcend time and all those things, so that y'all can have these conversations and they can be honest with you, because they're not going to want to talk about nothing if they don't feel that you like them. Kids are so real, and they can tell when you being fake. So be yourself and be honest and be real with them and love them right where they are. Love them enough to discipline them, love them enough to not play, but also love to show them you are. And Carvon, that we are streets always. You better stay, come on now. We are HBCU proud until they put us in the ground, and we still gonna be HBCU proud in the heavens. Okay. Come on, KCU.
All right, so hi everybody. I'm gonna close this out for the night. My name is Cameo Kendrick, and I am the chairperson of this incredible NEA Aspiring Educators program. I wanna say thank you so much to this incredible panel. I also just wanna say thank you to all of the aspiring educators that took action this week. We took 1963 Louisiana voter literacy test. We called our representatives and demanded that they co-sponsor the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We celebrated Black Girl Magic throughout history. We bought from Black-owned businesses. We did a lot. And I want you all to know that this is not the end of it. our program is not going to be performative about our work for racial justice. Please know that this is something that we are going to continue to push throughout the rest of this year, throughout next year, throughout the rest of my term. And hopefully, I know that each and every one of you will make sure that we continue to push on past that. First, I want to talk about my sweatshirt if I can. I think somebody's going to drop a link in the chat. The Hispanic Caucus has created these t-shirts. They have sweatshirts, mine's a hoodie. All of the proceeds are going to create scholarships for aspiring educators of color. So you all get your swag, check the link in the chat. Also, I want to tell you all about an event happening on Tuesday in partnership with NCSEA and NCUEA. NEA is proud to host a virtual roundtable discussion in honor of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's going to be Tuesday, January 19th from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. All of you all are invited. It's going to be entitled The Movement Moment, honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., elevating NEA's vision for public schools through a racial justice lens. Your girl is one of the panelists, so please come and support. We're also excited to announce that this roundtable discussion will be moderated by Bakari Sellers, who is an attorney. He's a CNN political commentator and a former South Carolina state representative who in 2006 became the youngest Black elected official in the country at the age of 22. So we're so glad to be able to have an opportunity to chat with him. And before we close it out, I want to pass the mic to officially close us out of our Black Lives Matter Week of Action and tonight's event. I'm going to pass the mic to my dear friend, my mentor, Mr. Kumar Rashad. We have years of good trouble together here in the state of Kentucky. We'll have to tell y'all about that at another time, but I pass it over to him to share some spoken word with us. It's entitled The Apocalypse, a tribute to John Crawford.
All right, yeah, this is definitely dedicated to my brother, John Crawford, whose son was killed on my birthday, August 5th, 2014, in a Walmart by police officers in Ohio. Okay. Free Mumia, trade them out and lock up Policia. Because in our final days, the time has come for us to unite as one. Have versus have-nots. Justice is a word, an idea, or a thought. Or maybe it's just a thought. A ratchet little trick that gets around a lot. Destroying the lies, telling lies, and blinding to the public. Even though the truth is right before my very eyes, I can't even tell the truth without being castigated. Walk around Walmart like John Crawford III and get annihilated, or maybe I should break up a fight and sell some cigarettes. Only to lie face down, being choked to death by the officer of the law who said for me to get on the sidewalk, but instead I ended up dead. I'm talking about pop, 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 final shot to the top of my head. My hoodie is my crime. Way too many times the boys in blue commit crimes, but justice needs new glasses because justice turns a blind eye. And the media won't deny they promoting this race war in hopes that we all die in this ignorance. United we stand, but divided we are impotent. Survival of the fittest, stand strong against killers. United States of America is the biggest drug dealer, biggest gangster, biggest pimp. The poor get poor, but the rich stay rich. Matter of fact, the rich get richer and richer and pay their employees low wages. I call them Walmart niggas. And the word nigga don't mean black because Donald Trump is a nigga, especially if I define it as someone who will fight without a just cause and for petty reasons becomes a killer. And that's the point, is that words don't define us, we define words. So it's up to us to make our voices heard. I'm talking about solidarity and action. I'm tired of going backwards. I need my 40 acres and a mule. I'm tired of politicians pretending not to be actors. Where are the real representatives? Because within me is where God lives. So fear none, because darkness can't exist at the same time with the light. What's it gonna take for a nation to fight for the justice's promise that is owed to the millions of enslaved peoples who labor to the depths of their souls to build this country? And we still gotta fight for the right to walk safe in the street. You say, what about black on black crime? I say, what about beef for police? Because power never concedes. Y'all don't hear me? Power never concedes. It must always be taken. like the lives of our loved ones who died so unjustly young. I can't believe it's taken centuries to strike, but Nat Turner, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and Martin Luther King, all of them were right. A dream fulfilled? No. Our reality is a nightmare. We got man-made diseases and disasters are everywhere. We're morally crucified, genetically modified, and lied to every single day of our lives by the news, family, schools, religion. Education for some don't even start till prison. Healthcare for some don't even start till prison. But we are all to blame. This is all our fault, your fault, and my fault. How do we let 2% of the population control 98% of all? But what can we do besides take a knee or sit back and complain? I'm gonna tell you what, you better stand up and make a change, or else the only alternative is for my people to fight fire with fire and burn all this to an end, and then wait for the Son of Man to return. Amen. Y'all, I wrote that a few years ago, and see how relevant it is to every single day. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. Have a good night. Thank you, Kumar.